Now it's time for us to honor our good friend, Sam. To begin these presentations, it is my privilege to call on David Suissa, publisher and editor-in-chief of Tribe Media, Jewish Journal. David has received many awards for his writing. Most recently, he won 2 Rockaware First Prizes for excellence in commentary and excellence in covering Zionism, Aliyah, and Israel. Please join me in welcoming our good friend, David Suissa.
So, I have a question. Paul Jesser gave me 10 pages to read, and I really don't feel like reading them, so we're going to take a vote. Who wants me to read the 10 pages, or who wants me to wing it? Please say wing. Okay, good. All right. So, look, he calls me up, says, introduce Sam Yebri, we're honoring him, and Antonio, the mayor. So I'm going back and forth. Do I introduce Antonio? Do I introduce Sam Yebri? And then finally it clears up. You're going to introduce Antonio, who's going to introduce Yebri. But by then, I was trying to connect the dots, right? So I figured maybe I'm going to introduce both of them. So I'm thinking Antonio, Yebri, I know them both pretty well. I bumped into them like only 100 times each. I really know them. So what do I connect Antonio with Yebri? So I thought about my blessed father. My father had one of the greatest traits I've ever seen in a human being. He always smiled. It didn't matter who I would introduce him to, he had an instant, immediate smile. And I picked that up from my father. So I also love to smile. So anytime I meet somebody who's got that instant smile, I connect with them. So I'm thinking, Sam Yebri, Antonio, every time I see them, they give me that instant smile. You know what that instant smile is? It says, I'm open to you. I want to listen to you. I want to be connected with you, and I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. You know, it sounds easy for people who do it, but it's not. Because so many people do not have that. They don't have the instant smile. So I want to honor both of you for having that instant smile. And I'm looking at Antonio, and he knows exactly what I mean. Because it's the thing, when I see so much of the problems that's going on in the world and the loneliness, all the balagan that's happening in Israel, this is what we need more of. We need more of the instant smiles that we get from Antonio and Sam Yebri. So I want to honor you both for that. So, you're going to hear a lot more about Sam when Antonio comes up. So I have a few things to say about Antonio. The first thing is, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the Jewish world, he's very famous for one thing. They might not know this in the rest of the world, but he's a big hero for the Jews. In 2012, he was the chairman of the Democratic Convention. And at the time, there was a lot of controversy because they were pushing, a whole group of us were pushing to put Jerusalem on the platform. And it was back and forth, and there was controversy. Articles were written from all sides. And there was the night of the big vote, and they took a vote. And there was controversy even around the vote. And Antonio was there, like 100 million people watching, and all the news things were there, and they were trying to find out the result of the vote. And then out of the blue, not even knowing whether the vote passed or not, he said, "The ayes have it." This is what he said. This is Antonio. He wasn't even sure what the vote was, but he says, I have all this power right here. You know what? It feels good. I think the vote came in, and he said, the ayes have it. And as soon as he said that, Jerusalem went on the platform of the Democratic Party and has not left since. That's a big deal, Antonio. So I will use one thing from Paul's 15 pages, is it the fact that he's the only mayor in America that's been to Israel 5 times. 5 times. And I want to read you what he wrote, what he published after one of his visits. One of the most moving aspects of my visit to Israel was a tour of the Shaare Zedek Medical Center in Jerusalem. Here in this hospital, which gives world-class medical treatment to all the citizens of Jerusalem. And despite the communal strife surrounding it in the region, I was taken by the fact that its patients and medical personnel belong to all religions and cultures. And he writes this beautiful love letter to Shaare Zedek. Now, you know, when people talk about Israel, they always say 75 years old, right? And this is the big year, 75. What they forget is how much older it is. Shaare Zedek is so old, they needed to get the approval of the Ottoman Empire in 1890. I'm not making this up. It was built, it was inaugurated in 1902, 46 years before the birth of Israel. So when people talk about Israel being 75 years old, the magic of Israel is not that it started in 1948 and then we had democratic institutions and then the right to vote and then educational institutions. All those things started way before. The Technion started in 1922. The magic of Israel is that so many of these great institutions happened before the official birth of Israel. And Shaare Zedek is right there along with it. So before I bring up Antonio, I have to say one more thing. It's a plug for the Jewish Journal, of course, but you'll see in your goodie bag a Jewish Journal. Now, when you pull out the Jewish Journal and you go to page 40, you will see a very special article, and it's called the Mensch of the Month. And I want to announce to you that this month, the Mensch of the Month, right up before we get to Rosh Hashanah, is Sam Yebri. And the writer of the article is sitting right there. It's Ryan Torek from Jewish Journal. So, you know, Antonio, one thing I can tell you is that we miss you. You did amazing things for 8 years, including reduce crime. You did amazing things for this city, and we miss you. And we wish you were back. We know that you're head of infrastructure now. I think there's like $250 million that the governor has thrown your way. So infrastructure, I'm not sure exactly what it means, but potholes on my street, can I call you? People don't realize he's got a huge job right now as head of infrastructure. But the greatest thing anyone, Antonio, could ever say to someone in our community, the greatest thing, is somebody who's good for the Jews. And you, my friend, are good for the Jews. Let's give it up for Mayor Antonio.
Lashana Tova Umetuka. It's good to be with all of you. I know that guy. I think for both of us, for both of us, they put a picture 25 years old. It's great to be here with you. And David, thank you for the work that you do with the Jewish Journal, the work that you do standing up for the Jewish community, for Israel. You've been a longtime friend, and I appreciate that wonderful introduction. You know, different than you, though, I know not to cross Paul Jesser. You know, when you're a politician, people give you a script because they don't want you to go beyond the 2 minutes that you have. In this case, he gave me not 10 pages, but 5, and I know better than not to share some of what he wanted me to focus on, so I will. And first of all, let me just say, and this is his, not mine, but it's actually kind of funny. Here we are in support of an Israeli hospital with an American actor as an MC, with a Moroccan Jew, a Latino former mayor, and we're giving an award to a Persian Jew. What a country we live in. So I've known and worked with Sam, by the way, and inviting me to hear Fight On. I'm a Bruin. But, you know, I had to I love you. So I had to listen to all of that right in front of me. Shook me up. You know, I've known and worked with Sam for over 40 years. I'm 20 years, rather. He's only 40. He's a unique and special young man, and I'm really pleased to have the privilege to be here today. Today was a crazy day. You would have thought I was still mayor because I literally had 4 events in addition to my meetings and my Zooms and all the rest of it. But I couldn't miss this because I believe that Sam is one of the finest young men in this town and somebody who I believe has a great deal of potential and has done so much in his short life. It was over 8 years ago that I went with Sam and Paul. Where are you, Paul? I saw. Oh, there you are. With Paul to what was then my 5th trip to Israel. I went last year again with my wife, so I've gone 6 times now. But it was an unforgettable trip. We had an opportunity to see how oxygen was turned into water. I gave a presentation at the Herzliya conference. We traveled down the same road that just a few hours later, not before, a few hours later, Eyal Yufrak, Gilad Shaare, and Neftali Franco, 3 Israeli teenage boys, were kidnapped and killed by terrorists from the West Bank. We had just gone down that road earlier in that day. I met with Prime Minister Netanyahu for what I thought was going to be just a picture-taking moment, and 1 hour and 3 cigars later, you know, we had a really good meeting. And that was the day that ISIS invaded Mosul. So most of our conversation was about that. I got to meet an old friend, Ehud Omer, and a former Israeli Supreme Court justice, and I spent time at Shaare Zedek. And the reason why I spoke and was so honored to be an honoree of Shaare Zedek, when you go to Shaare Zedek and you go to that ICU and you see Muslims and Jews together, delivering babies, caring for their children, it's a beautiful thing to see. And it's what separates Israel from the rest of their neighborhood, because you wouldn't see that anywhere else in the Middle East. I spent, you know, a great deal of time there and agreed to go on this trip and to be honored because of Sam. And I'll tell you, now it's my turn to return the favor. It was an honor for me to have been mayor of this town, to have been in this community, in this shul, as many times as I've been. In fact, I say I've been into me and my children have been in the homes of secular Jews who have 1 oven, the more religious who have 2, and the even more religious who have 3. And I could tell you, it's been an honor to represent you. I guess we all know, in addition to going to USC Law School, Sam went to Yale. He was a city commissioner for me. He worked on what was it? Trying to remember. It was a civil service commission. And then he worked for Michael Fuhrer as a gun violence prevention task force. He now serves as the board president of ETA, an organization providing housing and supportive services to developmentally disabled individuals. This is a guy that could spend his time doing almost anything. He's got credentials second to none. And he spends his time helping people find housing, the disabled. You know, I think you all know he's the president of that organization. He's a board member of Zedek. He's also on the board of the Jewish Free Loan Association of LA. He's an advisory council of the Western region of the American Committee for Shaare Zedek Medical Center. He's involved in a way that very few people are. He gives back. He understands the notion of tzedakah, of tikkun olam, of giving back to the world, and I couldn't be prouder to be here. I supported him in that last race, and I did, with, a great deal of pride. I first met him, I guess, when he co-founded and led as president 30 years after a grassroots organization that engaged thousands of young Iranian-American Jews here in American civic life and Jewish life. And that's so important because a lot of new Americans, frankly, don't vote in the way that they should. And that's true for, the one thing I know about this town, that's true for almost every new American and new community. And so engaging them in civic life, saying, what makes us different is that here, we participate, was a great thing. And then let me just say something about his better half. And Paul, you didn't have to write that for me to know that. I'll tell you, Leah is an amazing woman, and they have 4 beautiful children. And to watch her work on his behalf last year was just amazing. She was everywhere. If you didn't call, she did. And, also a recipient and an honoree of Shaare Zedek with the Ishet, Shail Woman of Valor Award, and they both reside here in Westwood. And what a couple, a dynamic couple. So, Paul wants me to read some Hebrew. So let me just say before I do that, in every service, Jews pray for peace and security of Israel. Mordecai Rosenstein, one of America's best-known Jewish artists, has produced a stunning visual rendering entitled Prayer for Israel. And in Rosenstein's unique style of Hebrew calligraphy, the words of the prayer are fused with the Israeli flag. And although I am Hebrew challenged, I'll read the Hebrew and then the translation. Avinu Malekenu Hagayem Alecha Bevarat Hazdecha Ufrot Alecha Sukkot Shelemecha. Our Father, our King, should shield Israel under the wings of your kindness, spread over her canopy of peace. And so, Sam, please accept this piece of art as a token of our appreciation for all your efforts on behalf of Shaare Zedek, on behalf of Paul, another incredible individual, on behalf of the entire Jewish community. We're so proud.
All right, everyone. I'm going to keep this brief. It's going to be mostly thank yous. I think I'm the only person whose speech Paul did not write, so I have some liberty. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out and spending your evening supporting a cause that's really important to Leah and me in an incredible hospital, Shaare Zedek Medical Center in Jerusalem. Thank you all for being here, for being so generous. Of course, I want to thank Leah, my family, so many good friends in the room who are here to support Shaare Zedek. And I want to thank the entire Shaare Zedek family, all the people who've been on stage today, David, Mayor Villaraigosa, Ben, you did a great job emceeing, Barak, Rona, the entire Shaare Zedek, Stephen Matloff. Thank you so much for putting so much of your time and heart into this incredible hospital. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Paul Jesser one more time. And if I heard right, it was 51 years ago in Maine that he organized his first event on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people. And Paul, if you know Paul and his better half, Faye, you can't help but, and Dave, their son, is here too, and their family. His love and Faye's love for Israel, the Jewish people, is truly infectious. They are a force in our community. We're fortunate to know them and to love them. And it was passed down to their son, Michael, who I got to know of blessed memory, whom I knew really well at USC, at the Federation. He's here with us in spirit, and he will always be in our hearts. We'll always love Michael. So a big hug to the entire Jesser family on behalf of us.
So if tonight feels more like a simcha, a family affair, then we did our job. That was our goal tonight, with the music, the jokes, kind of the stories about the hospital, because to us, to our family, Israel's not just a place, it's not a land, it's not something you read about in the Torah. Israel is home and Israelis are family. That's the way I was raised, my parents here. That's the way we're trying to raise our kids. And I know that's true for so many of you in this room. I think you wouldn't be here if you didn't feel the same way. And I'm sure you were raised to believe that there's no thing more important than to fight for your family and to protect your home. And this really resonated with me when it comes to the hospital. When Leah and I, when we were expecting our first child, Elizabeth here, 10 years ago, we visited Israel on our baby moon. And at Paul's suggestion, his urging, he said, go visit the hospital. And we did, and it really left an indelible mark in our hearts, visiting first the maternity ward, which you heard is the largest in the Western world, where so many babies are born every day. And then a couple floors below that, what was under construction then was an emergency room underground. And you realize the fragility of life, you realize how important this hospital is to our family, to our Israelis, and our home in Israel. And then the following years, Mayor Villaraigosa mentioned, between his meetings with the Prime Minister Netanyahu and his meetings with CEOs and tech leaders, the three of us visited Shaare Zedek together for an afternoon. And for me, what I recall vividly was walking down the dialysis unit and strapped to the same machines were Haredi ultra-Orthodox Jews, secular Jews, Arab Israelis, and Palestinians, because as Stephen mentioned, politics and identity, none of that matters when it comes to in Shaare Zedek. And it's an embodiment of everything that is good, that can be good in our society, in our world, and really our Jewish values as well. And when I got back, I told Paul, I'm all in. I want to be helpful to Shaare Zedek. It's going to be one of the causes that I'm going to commit myself to. And I got Paul Jesser, which means if you know him, you know what that means. He found opportunities for me to be of service. And Paul, I'm eternally grateful for that, because it makes sense, right? If Israel's home, and if Israelis are family, you want to make sure that your home and your family have the world's best hospital, the best medical care, and you got to do everything you can to make sure that's a reality. And I remember as we left that hospital, you looked on the walls, you saw some names that were recognizable, names of people in this room, families in this town, and you realize a hospital of Shaare Zedek's caliber doesn't just get built. It's because people are generous. They commit themselves. And as Matloff said, intergenerationally, they make a commitment that making sure that Shaare Zedek has the world's best technology and the best care and the resources. Families have made that commitment for many years, going back 120 years. So I urge everyone, in conclusion, to think about how they can be of service to Shaare Zedek to make sure our home and our family have the best medical care possible. And in the words of the immortal Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she said, whatever you do, leave tracks. Meaning, of course, we have a short, limited amount of time and resources and blessings on this earth. Try to do something that will leave a difference and a legacy, and especially in a way that others, perhaps your kids or your grandkids, will follow in those steps. And I hope all of us take that to heart as we enter the new year. And to everyone, thank you for being here, for your support, your generosity, and Lashana Tova to everyone.
Congratulations, Sam. Friends, as we bring this evening to an end, I want to thank all those involved in the planning and execution of what I hope was a most entertaining and inspirational evening. If you have not done so, please use the cards at your table to make a gift in support of Shaare Zedek. I also want to thank all of you for being here tonight. You are sending a strong and much needed message of support. And most importantly, I want to thank my friends Sam, Leah, and his family for all that they have and will continue to do for our people and for the community. Thank everyone so much for joining us. Have a great, great night. Thank you so much.